Hello, everyone. Welcome to a MapPap bonus episode. My name is Darren, and I'm a fourth year student in the department, and I'm going to be the host today. And joining me is a very special guest. We have a PhD student in the department. We have Jonathon Riddell. Jonathan, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathon Riddell. I am a second year PhD student working with Professor Eric Sorensen.
Very nice. So I've had Eric Sorensen as a prof before. What's it like being supervised by him?
Eric is an incredible supervisor, to be honest with you. He's extremely supportive. We meet once a week, every week. He's always got really good input for projects, and he's very understanding when you're not making progress. He's very excited for you when you are making progress. I can go into more detail if you want, but yeah, he's definitely one of the good ones.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I like having him as a prof. I can definitely see him being a really good supervisor. So what sort of research are you working on currently?
So I work on something called the Foundations of Statistical Mechanics, and to sort of set the stage, I guess when um, what should I expect from the audience here? Just undergraduate students?
Yeah, undergraduate level.
Okay,
Yeah.
so when you take a quantum mechanics class, a lot of times, you'll be studying like maybe, a couple quantum particles in a box, or maybe just one quantum particle in a box. And you'll often start with dynamics where you see things that are like in a pure state, for example. And the a really interesting question to ask yourself is if I only use quantum mechanics, um, can I come up with a really good, rigorous reason for why I should expect things like statistical mechanics and thermodynamics to work?
Right.
And the answer is yes. Not all the details are worked out. There's still a lot of open questions, but that's essentially what I do.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And so that would be more on the theoretical side of things, or
Yep, theoretical and computational. To my knowledge, I mean, there's not a lot of. There are experimental groups that are asking these questions as well, but not me and Eric, I guess.
yeah, for sure. Cool. So what does the average day like for you then?
So projects have like peaks in certain types of things. So a lot of the stuff that we do, like the models have lots of different things interacting. Like we typically work on like spin models that model magnetism and materials. And so to approach those things, a lot of times you need to write, pretty heavy duty heavy duty code to simulate those models. So certain weeks will be dominated by trying to implement certain algorithms, or checking to make sure what you did implement is actually correct. Lots of sanity checks. Those tend to be very tedious, but and then other weeks can be, we have this cool result. Can I explain this mathematically? And you're deep diving into trying to see what other people have done, and doing lots of mathematics. And then yeah, so there's lots of different spikes in activity. Right now, my days are dominated by plotting and trying to get papers written. So
Right.
so yeah, it depends on the day and what part of the projects you're in. But that's basically it.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing a thesis project right now, like a senior thesis, and it has to do a lot of coding because of the COVID-19 pandemic and stuff like that. Not able to get into labs and stuff, but I definitely see where you're coming from, having those sanity checks and trying to get your code working, and then once you have it working, deciphering what it means. Um,
Yeah, who are you
Definitely
working with?
rigorous. I'm working with Kari Danaki Veras.
Okay, okay.
Yep, yep. Um, so yeah, I mean, I personally I can't see myself doing that all the time. So what made you sort of decide to go into research and specifically this type of research?
Okay, so this is a long story. Hopefully that's fine. So I did my undergraduate degree at Western University, and at Western University at the time, it's unfortunately no longer the case, but they had a department of applied mathematics, And I came into undergrad thinking that I wanted to be a theoretical physicist, but like, most people coming in first year don't really know what that really means or what subjects are open. So they ended up having a program called a major in theoretical physics, and I was like, hey, that's me right there. I need to do that. But working in the applied math department, there is a lot of like numerical analysis and different types of coding courses to expose you to numerical methods. So I built up a really good skill base just going through there. And then, I guess the plan was always to become a researcher, but I didn't know my topic until second year when I took thermal physics and I took modern physics at the same time. So it's like your first exposure to quantum mechanics. And both of them at the same time just blew my mind.
Nice.
And I was just like, I hope that, someone somewhere mixes these two things. And so I went to my modern physics professor named Martin Hood, and he told me that that a guy named Marcus Mueller was just hired by the university, and he was going to start in the next September, and he works on exactly what I work on now, and I should contact him as soon as he shows up.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was like really crazy timing. So then, it took September rolls around and I was like nervous and I didn't want to contact him, of course, and I finally worked up the courage in like October or November. And we met and chatted a few times after, he gave me some stuff to read and get into actually having conversations about what he might want to work on. And then he like, he blew my mind. When he finally was ready to pitch me a topic idea to work on, he introduced me to something called, the eigenstate thermalization hypothesis. And, it's a bit cliche because it's the first project that was ever pitched to me, but I've been obsessed with it ever since. So ever since then, that's all I've ever really wanted to work on, or I wanted to work in like adjacent fields that help contribute to understanding this. Yeah.
Right, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's interesting to hear that you're exposed to something and then your mind just stuck with it. I think that's really admirable, and I think that a lot of graduate students would probably feel in a similar way where they're exposed to something and then they sort of want to keep contributing to that. So that's awesome. So speaking with regards to that, what has been your most proudest work so far, or what have you been most proud of in terms of your graduate school progress?
I always have recency. Like it's hard to change yourself away from recency bias, but so I have 4 publications. 3 of them are first authors, and one is a primary author where I split first authorship with two postdoctoral fellows. In some sense, I would say that a paper that I published with the 2 postdoctoral fellows, one being Alvaro Alamba. I met him by going to the Perimeter Institute and having my previous supervisor introduce me to someone who's working on these ideas. We started chatting, and eventually something ended up working out to be publishable. So it's a nice like success story of like making a connection and then building a collaboration type relationship, and then it just so happened to turn out to be a good enough result to go into a pretty prestigious journal called Physical Review Letters. So that's definitely a big accomplishment. I guess it's hard to say that is the biggest accomplishment, but I think it's probably the most maybe unique compared to the other ones. Like my other 3 papers were with my supervisors at the time, and of course those are also every single paper that anyone publishes is a big accomplishment, right? And recency bias, I'm really excited about. I'm writing 2 papers now. very, very excited about those things. But I guess like the closure on publications always feels like a really big accomplishment every single time you do it. So
right.
I apologize for not completely answering the question, but perhaps that's yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's got to feel different, writing a paper with other people rather than your supervisor, right? Like, it's got to, I don't know, that seems like sort of like a step forward, in terms of, your career as a researcher.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I agree. It's of course fine to just work, a lot of times you get collaboration opportunities through your supervisor because they're
right.
collaborating with people. And that's always like, it's really nice to build extra relationships. It's like, if you really want to be doing multiple projects at the same time, like you can't really do them, at least I can't do them alone, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like I couldn't work on like 5 distinct projects on my own, but
Yeah,
having multiple people to sort of chat with, and then, you can contribute in either a big way or a small way. It's a good way to get your name out there and to contribute and also learn new skills and new things. Like it's invaluable to have, multiple really experienced people sort of chat with you about the topics that you're interested in.
absolutely. Yeah. And for you especially, like, I mean, I can only imagine this is like just the start of many collaborations in the future. So I think,
I hope
yes,
so.
yeah, it's awesome that
Yeah.
you have those connections. Cool. So kind of switching gears here, what would you say is the hardest part of being in grad school?
So when I first got to grad school, the hardest thing for me was like in undergrad, what you're doing is you have 5 courses, and things usually turn out in such a way that your schedule does seem a little bit manageable. So sometimes you'll have lots of exams one week and things are really hectic, or a couple assignments due at the same time, but you're really just focusing on that one thing, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then of course, like some students end up getting research internships and things like this, so this can complicate their their life a little bit. But like at the end of the day, like it feels like you have one primary focus. And the hardest thing to transition to in graduate school for me was like just to say this before I go on, like I find it difficult to sort of get into the zone of thinking really hard about problems on an assignment or on research. So little interruptions to my schedule can always like throw a wrench in my progress. And so when I first got to Mac, it was a lot of like, you have research, and then you also have classes, but there's not so many classes that they dominate your schedule. So you're kind of still expected to do research. And then you're also TAing at the same time. And TAing can be like in person, and it's for like an hour, hour and a half, but it's usually like it's at like 10:30 or something. So like you might get into the office at like 9, and then it's like, well, I don't really have a lot of time to I don't have a lot of time to do research here, and it's not really enough time to work on my classwork. Um, and then there's also like, meeting new people, and there's all kind of types of like new exciting relationships, and you're trying to prove yourself that you're, like you have the subconscious need to like prove to your new supervisor who doesn't know
Mhm.
you that you're competent. And
Yeah, for
so,
sure.
so the transition and getting into that sort of type of schedule was difficult for sure. Um, yeah, I guess I would go with that for like the transition to a much more hectic schedule, and still trying to find time, like a lot of not just find time, but find a lot of time to sit down and be quiet and just think very hard about things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can definitely see how, those micro interruptions you were talking about, you know, it's something that I guess I don't really think about right now, because like you were saying, it's like you have primary focus is on classes, and then I have my thesis project, so I do that in between. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I guess with like a really specific and difficult project like yours, then you would have to have those uninterrupted times.
Yeah, and I would definitely say like another thing to add on to that, like changing sort of lifestyles and focuses, is it's really tempting to overwork yourself and
Hmm.
like not find work-life balance. But I don't know if you've met the TA Joey, but shout out to Joey because he gave me lots of pep talks about it's tempting. You want to make as much progress as possible. You want to show Eric every week that you've made a certain amount of progress. Um, but like it's okay if you don't, and you're gonna burn yourself out if you decide I didn't do enough work this week, so I'm going to spend my whole weekend working on my project, or I'm going to work every night on my project. You know,
Hmm.
because I don't know, it's not very that work also doesn't tend to be very productive anyways. So
Right.
it's really good advice that you know, work-life balance is really important for
Yeah, that
me.
is really good advice for sure. So
Yeah.
continuing on that, what do you do to help maintain that?
Just stepping away like in any, you know, so to help maintain that, I usually have all that, like, you know, Eric doesn't check up on me. So making sure that, you know, I wake up, you know, semi regularly around 9 or something, or sorry, start work around 9, and then you know, and then around like 5 or 6, make sure like that's it, you know,
Right. Just
just
cutting yourself off. Yeah, that's
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
cutting myself off, and also recognizing, like, you know, sometimes it's nice to, you know, once you're really stuck, it's nice to say, you know, I'm not making any progress, so like I'm gonna go, you know, like, I don't know, like walk around the apartment, or
Mhm.
you know, go for a walk, or like go do a chore that I've been putting off or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Nice. Um, and then sort of going back before, with sort of your relationship with other grad students, what's that like? Is it different from undergrad and making relationships with people in an undergrad program versus a graduate program?
Um, it is, because like people at least at Western, um, you know, I guess I had my math friends and I had my physics friends in my classes, but you know, people didn't really have primary social circles that are sort of like forced on them because of where their office is, right? And
Hmm.
like what group they're in. So, you know, I don't think it's surprising that my closest friends at McMaster are all people in theoretical physics, for example. And, you know, my closest friends happen to be, you know, people within my group, right? Because they're the people I spend the most time with. So you know, it's, I guess it's weird because like a lot of your social circle can be like much more experienced than you, and you might be looking at someone who is your, you know, perhaps you can call it like a primary friend in your, you know, like at McMaster or something like that, and they're also someone senior to you that you're looking up to and sort of, you know, looking for advice in lots of different circumstances. There's also a weird circumstance where you can make a friend with someone who's more senior than you, and then they can be your TA, right?
Oh yeah.
And 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 like that's a strange little power imbalance where it's almost like you can't be equal friends for, like, you know, the 3 months, 4 months that you're technically their student,
Yeah, for
you know.
sure.
So,
Hmm.
but it's, you know, it's you know, I guess it's largely the same as undergrad. It
Nice.
takes time. It at least took me time. Like it took me, I would say, you know, I'm quite close to a few people now, but you know, it took me a few months to like warm up to, you know, the first few people, I guess.
Yeah, I can imagine that for sure. Like I I'm I'm looking to go into teachers college, so
Okay.
um, it's like a little bit different, but I am terrified of having to go to a new program and having to meet new people.
Yeah.
So it's good that you found some friends in the department. That's really good. Um, yeah, so we've talked a lot about like your physics journey so far. So we'll sort of switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
I'll ask like a little bit some more fun questions, I guess.
Okay.
So hypothetically, if you weren't going to go into physics, or maybe broaden it, maybe not going into science, what would you be doing instead?
That's a really good question. I actually, perhaps it's a boring answer, but I am a really big fan of like ancient history.
Oh,
And
nice.
and if I wasn't in physics right now, perhaps I'd be doing a PhD on something to do with like Rome or Carthage or something like
Right,
this.
right on.
Um, yeah, and otherwise, I've always had, you know, a lot of interest in politics and things like this. So perhaps like activism, or something like, I don't know, my mom always thought that I'd make a good lawyer, I guess. So
Nice. That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that history is one of those things where it's like, I don't know, there's a couple things that I'm like really interested in,
yeah,
and a couple things that I have zero interest in. So yeah, ancient history is one of those things that I'd definitely be interested in.
Yeah.
Modern history, like importing and trades, I would not be interested in that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think that's cool. Like the um, some people are very interested in everything in general. And unfortunately, there's too many things to become an expert in everything. And then some people like to be specialists. Like I'm very fixated on a very specific time period. And I end up learning a lot about it. But if you sort of dub me as a history guy, then you ask me about something in medieval times, like oh, like I have no idea. So
Yeah, that's true. I wonder how they deal with that in sort of the history sphere. Like, sure, you're a history guy, but what do you actually know about history? It's like, I don't know, if someone asked you just like, I don't know, something in astrophysics or something, like, would you be able to explain it? I don't know.
yeah, probably. I guess I wouldn't be confident. Like if it's for astrophysics, if it's a layperson and it's something that I had learned in undergrad, I might be able to do it. But I would definitely. I'm sure it's the same in the history department. Like you know what you know, you're an expert in what you know, and then I mean, perhaps you can comment on little things here and there, but not like very technical, small details that are more probably at the forefront of modern research.
Yeah, it's kind of like you tell someone, oh, you like comedy. Oh, you like comedy. Why don't you tell me a joke? It's like,
Yeah,
great, you got me.
yeah.
So what do you like to do in your free time when you're not researching or doing classes and stuff?
Um, well, I mean, recently with the pandemic, there's not a lot of going. Like when it was nice outside, we sometimes myself and a few other grad students would play tennis, for example, or something along those, some type of physical activity. But now it's like a lot of, all of my socialization these days is like, playing some type of video game online with certain groups of friends. So um, every other weekend or so, there's a big group of graduate students and significant others who participate in like big Jackbox games.
Oh yeah.
If you've played those, and then more casually or slash regularly, battle royale games are very popular. I've been learning how to play Warzone. And then I don't know
Oh
if you
nice.
I don't know if you know James Lambert, but him and I play
Yeah.
Rome Total War against each other
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, pretty regularly. So
Nice.
and then other than that, I'm married, so hanging out with the wife and maybe watching some TV or going for some walks, kind of thing. Yeah.
Nice. It's awesome. Yeah, my friend group particularly, we really like the board games where it's like about a social deduction and like
Okay.
games like Werewolf and Avalon and stuff like that. I don't know if you've played them, but
I don't. No, I actually I've never played those games. That's
yeah, they're really fun. It's really nice to just lie to your friends and get away with it.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we really enjoy those as well as the Jackbox games as well. Yeah,
Have you
it's really
guys
cool.
tried Contessa? I think it's called.
Oh,
Is that what it's called?
Coup, I think is
Yes,
the
Coup.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, Coup.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
where Contessa is one of the roles. Yeah, we've played that before. It's one of the better ones to play in a smaller group.
yeah,
Because then the rounds go by really quickly. But yeah, we really like that one. Yeah.
yeah.
I remember before the pandemic hit, like last fall. Wow, it's so long ago. Um last fall we after we had an afternoon class on Friday, and everybody was bummed out that was an afternoon class on Friday because it's Friday and we don't want to go to class.
Fair.
So
Yeah.
we just bring our board games, and then right after the class, like we just stay in the class and play the board game. So
Oh, that's really
that was,
cool.
yeah, that was a
Okay.
good memory for us.
So
Um,
what do you guys do to replace like playing board games socially now? What are the undergrads doing?
yeah, I mean it's a little bit different because it's harder to just sort of ask everybody, yo, are you guys free after class today and stuff like that. So I personally have been trying to organize things sort of ahead of time. Um, sort of getting people's schedules in sync and stuff like that. So we've just been doing sort of the same thing, just over, over Discord calls and stuff like that. Sort of
Okay.
doing the same thing. We found some like websites where you can play the board games and it's all integrated and stuff. It's really
Okay,
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Did you guys get into the Among Us craze?
Yeah, we were into Among Us for a while. It's it's hard because Among Us is like better played with more people.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get like a large group for it. I also found with Among Us, it's hard because it's not as social as the other games.
I
'Cause you're
agree.
not
Yeah.
really talking like the whole time.
Yeah.
Um, so I prefer the other games myself, but yeah, that was fun for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why we ditched like the group of friends that I had. We used to play board games, and then we tried Among Us, and then we sort of ditched it because it was like, you're not really supposed to talk the vast
Yeah,
majority of the time
exactly.
that you're playing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like joking around with my friends more.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess we're coming up on sort of the end. So I guess we can sort of end things off here unless you have anything else you really want to touch on.
Uh, no, I
No?
mean, I guess that's fine.
Okay. I guess we can end off on one last question here. So the most of the people who are going to be listening to this podcast, I assume, are going to be undergrads. So as advice to them, what is the most important thing that you learned in your undergrad that you sort of took to grad school or in life in general?
Um, it's a very hard open-ended question. Uh, the best thing that I've learned from undergrad. Well, perhaps I'll answer it by saying that, at all times you should do your best to be sort of honest with yourself about expectations and potential outcomes. Like things. How do I put this? Like there's, like, for example, if you go to grad school, like it's okay to acknowledge that it's quite hard. It's okay to acknowledge that you need a break and that you're burnt out. um it's uh I don't really know how to expand on it a lot, other than saying that uh, I'm quite I'm quite I'm
No
quite I'm
worries,
quite
no worries.
I'm quite stuck here. I got, yeah, being
Would you say something along the lines of like knowing your limits or
um I don't know if it's know your limits, because I think a lot of people, I think that's also very hard to be honest with yourself about, and I think a lot of people can be in particular quite down on themselves.
right?
um but it's more about, like on a week to week basis, when you're grinding away at something difficult, it's a lot easier to focus yourself on, of course, the long term stuff is really important to think about, right? But it's more important to, celebrate minor victories, and understand that, not every day that you're going to wake up is there going to be progress.
Mhm.
There are going to be moments where you're not having fun. There's going to be moments when you are having fun. Uh, and if someone warns you about something, like, for example, just an offhanded comment here, like if someone's looking at a specific graduate supervisor for research, um, I think it's, listening to other graduate students who have worked with a supervisor or have worked in a field, and like taking their advice very seriously, and warnings very seriously, is very important, because things can be very difficult. Certain types of supervisor personalities will conflict with yours, and it's important to be honest with yourself about, how you think you're actually going to function in a certain type of environment or on a certain type of project, and also to to acknowledge that difficult things take time, and you need to have reasonable expectations always. Otherwise, things can get very stressful. You put a lot of pressure on yourself. Life is a marathon, I guess. Is the maybe that's the punchline. Life is a marathon.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's some great advice. I definitely felt that myself sometimes. So that's good. Yeah. Nice. Alrighty. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, Jonathan.
It was
Good
great.
luck with all your future endeavors. And it was great having this podcast with you.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to chat.